Hello everybody, this is my June off-season bracket for the upcoming college basketball season, projected to start in November. This is for 2020-2021. So this is my bracket. There's some quick big picture things. I've got Gonzaga, Villanova, Baylor, Virginia. It's the number one overall seeds. See at the top, you can see how many bids each conference gets. Big Ten and the Pac-12 with 8. Big Ten will continue their reign at the top as far as conferences go. Pac-12 having a sharp turnaround since 2018-19 season. I've got 8 teams in that league. Big 12 with 7. SEC with 6. Big East with 5. ACC also with 5. A pretty big drop off with the American at only 2. The Atlantic 10 at 2. And the Missouri Valley actually with 2. I've got them as a multi-bid league this year. And then the Mountain West is a 1-bid league right now. Don't really see any other teams getting in other than San Diego State. Alright, so this is the West Regional. Obviously Gonzaga being the number 1 overall seed. In turn, Philip Petrusev, Corey Kispert, Joel Ayayi, Jutemi Plus, Jalen Suggs, the highest rated player they've gotten at Gonzaga. Now, I believe Petrusev and Kispert are in the NBA draft process. But if they come back, I think they will start preseason number 1. And I think they'll be the best team in the sport. Now for number 4, let's go down here. I've got Colgate, Norfolk State for that playing game. So I think that Colgate will continue their Patriot dominance for this upcoming season. They've been really the best team in that conference for a couple of years now. And then Norfolk State also, I think they'll get a bid since the last time they got a bid was when they beat Missouri as a 15-2. That was about 8 years ago or so. So I got Northern Iowa as an 8 seed. I know that could be kind of crazy, but even though they lost in their conference tournament this year, I think they returned a good amount from their team. 3 of the top 5 scorers, AJ Green being the best player. I think they'll have a pretty competitive battle between them and Loyola Chicago. But I think they actually get a pretty high seed for a Missouri Valley team. Now Illinois is kind of like a wait-and-see team. I did lose their 6th man to the transfer portal. And Ayo Dosunmu and Kofi Coburn are also in the NBA draft process. So this is kind of like if one comes back and the other goes. I think that's where they'll land. But if they both come back, I think they'll probably be a top 4 seed in the preseason. And be a pretty competitive Big Ten team. But without one of them, or both of them, I think they fall to the 9 line, or just about like that. North Carolina got them rebounding from that awful, abysmal season that they just had. And they got a top 3 recruiting class coming in, including 3 5-stars, according to 247 Sports. So that should complement experience from Garrison Brooks, Armando Bacot, and Leaky Black. Were kind of like the best players for them last year, aside from Cole Anthony. And then for the 12 seed, I got Austin Peay coming out of the Ohio Valley. I got two players that actually entered the NBA draft, but they already announced they're coming back. So I think this team's going to be really good. I think they'll win the OVC over Murray State and Belmont. Now, number 4 seed, Arizona State. Got Remy Martin, and if he comes back, I think that he'll be a top 4 seed and probably maybe the favorite to win the Pac-12. One of the favorites, perhaps. And then they also got 5-star Josh Christopher and Marcus Bagley, who's a 4-star also. Of course, that's according to 247 Sports. Now, South Dakota State as a 13 should be clear favorite to win the Summit Conference. And then their coach is really picking up where TJ Otzelberger left them. Florida State as a number 6. They've been a really consistent team the last few years under Leonard Hamilton. Now, they do lose a lot, but they still got Malik Osborne, MJ Walker. They've got them back. Plus the 5-star Scotty Barnes. I think he's a top 10 prospect that they're bringing in. So I think they'll be a pretty good team. Top 25. Now, number 1, this is one of the last 4 in group. I got Utah out of the Pac-12, SMU out of the American in this matchup. Now, Utah, they return almost everyone from last year. If you remember correctly, they were kind of competitive. They did beat Kentucky last year. They had somewhat competitive against the good teams in the Pac-12. I think they improved. Now, they did lose Booth Gotch, but Timmy Allen, Rylan Jones, I think they'll lift them to tournament contention. And then SMU, they also return everybody. They were pretty competitive in the American last year. Kentucky got them as a 3. They lose almost everybody from last year. It's almost a completely new slate. You can bring back Keon Brooks. But they do have the number 1 recruiting class coming in, headlined by Terrence Clark. He's a top 10 prospect. So I think this will be a pretty typical season for the Kentucky Wildcats. They might have some questions early, might have some confusing losses, like this past team had with Utah and Evansville. But I think once you get to the tournament, I think they'll be a hot team and one of the quote trendy picks to get to the Final Four. Now, Yale, they've got a significant amount of production returning, including their leading scorer from last year, and Paul Atkinson. So I've got them winning the Ivy League. Now, Oklahoma State, unfortunately, it looked like they did get banned from the tournament, but they still got the appeal. So I really feel bad for them, but hopefully they win the appeal. I think they would have landed on the 7 line. So I've got Cade Cunningham, who is arguably the best prospect from this class. Plus, I got returning players like Isaac Likely and Yoren and I. So I think Mike Bourne would have gotten Oklahoma State to the tournament this year for the first time in his tenure there. Now, Michigan, I'm a little low on this team. If Isaiah Livers come back, I think they'll be a little bit higher, but that's where I've got them right now, because I do lose a lot. I lost some of the recruits they were projected to get to Arizona State, and then also to the G League. So I got them as a 10 seed. Creighton as a 2. I think they'll still be a top 10 kind of a team if they return Marcus Zegarowski, who's a NBA draft entrant. and should be right behind Villanova in the Big East. And Montana, I think they've really been one of the best teams in that conference. And it should be pretty competitive between them and Eastern Washington, but I've got Montana coming out on top. Alright, moving on. Got Villanova as a second 1 seed out of the East. This will be a really completely stacked team. They've got Colin Gillespie, Jermaine Samuels, Jeremiah Robinson Earl, Justin Moore, and the Tulane sit-out transfer. I think they'll be just awesome. I do think that Gonzaga and Villanova will be the best 2 teams in the country. I think there's a little bit of separation beyond them. And they've also got my favorite name in Demir Cosby Roundtree, so that's fun. Now, UC Irvine has a 16 out of the Big West. Returned their leading scorer. So I've got them as a 16. Arkansas, I think they have top 10 recruiting class coming in. And then they seem to be on like every transfer list. They've got a lot of transfers in, a lot of guys. And then we're also dependent on Isaiah Joe, if he comes back potentially. I think that I would move them up a little bit. I think he's going to go though. And then Ohio State is a 9. I lose significant pieces. Caleb Wesson, moving on. I bring in Seth Towns, the grad transfer from Harvard, I believe. Plus, I still got Dwayne Washington and CJ Walker there. Now, Rutgers is a 5. One of the most surprising teams last year. And I think they would have made the tournament. And I've got them as a 5 seed. They returned almost everyone from last year. Plus, they bring in top 50 recruit and Cliff Omoruyi. So I think they'll be probably top 5 or so in the Big Ten. Now Furman, it's a 12 seed coming out of the SoCon over UNC Greensboro. They returned a lot of their team from last year, but they did lose Jordan Lyons. Houston as a 4 seed. I did lose, I think it was Fabian White. I think he tore his ACL. That's a bummer. They also lost a player to the NBA draft. But I still got them. They're still returned, I think, 4 out of 6 top scorers from last year's team. So I think they'll still be around the top 15 or so in the country. Now, Abilene Christian as a 13 coming out of Southland. I do lose their leading scorer, but they returned pretty much everyone else. So I've got them coming out of the Southland. Excuse me. Texas returns almost everyone from a bubble team, plus Shaka Smart on the hot seat. So I think it's really a tournament or bust, or tournament or he's fired. So I got them as a 6 seed. Although that roster could be a little bit hesitant as a 6 seed, but they really have the potential to be like a 4 or a 3. Plus, I bring in Greg Brown, who I believe is top 10 or 15 prospect according to 247. Arizona, this might be a little bit low for them, but they were completely wiped from last year. And I did get a lot of international prospects. I think that landed them in the top 5 in their recruiting class. I think it's going to be kind of similar to last year's Arizona team, where they go out and beat beat some of the good teams, like last year, that go out, beat USC, Oregon, the top teams of the Pac-12, and then they go out the next game and lose to like Oregon State or somebody like that. So I got them as an 11. Duke is a 3. Again, another team that lost a lot of production, but they've got another top 3 class coming in. Plus a couple of players returning, including Matthew Hurt, Joel Goldwire, and Wendell Moore. What should be good for them. They got Coach K coming in as a 3, and it should be one of the co-favorites in the ACC with Virginia. And I got Iona coming out of the MAC or the AAC. Just Rick Pitino. That's really all I gotta say for that one. Now, Oregon is a 7. I think they're still a factor in the Pac-12 despite losing Peyton Pritchard and Shakir Houston. Could return players like Chris Duarte, people like that. So I still think they'll be at the top of the Pac-12. I've got them coming in as a 7. And then LSU is a 10. They got another good recruiting class, top 10. And a lot of guys waiting on decisions from regarding the NBA. Trendon Watford, Javonte Smart, Darius Days. But I got LSU falling down to a 10 if they lose all those guys. Now Wisconsin is a 2. They lose Bretman Pritzel, but they return pretty much everyone else from a team that remarkably they went from losing to New Mexico in November to winning a Big Ten title. So that's fun. So I think they'll probably be the co-favorites for the Big Ten this year, along with Iowa, perhaps Michigan State. I got them as a 2 seed. And then Wright State is a 15. Coming in from the Horizon League. And then I got their leading scorer back, along with some other pieces. And they won the conference last year. Alright, now we're looking at Baylor's region, the South. And they returned 6 of their top 8 scorers. Should be the favorite in the Big 12. And they got a couple of 4-stars coming in. So I think they won't drop off too far from last year. I think they'll be a top 5 team, get a 1 seed. And number 3, they got Robert Morris and NJIT. Now it just happens that it turns out both of those teams are switching conferences, but I think NJIT is going to, I want to say, the America East, and Robert Morris going to the Horizon. So I'll certainly fix that for the next edition of this. Now I've got St. Louis coming in as an 8 seed. This team finished the year really hot. I think they'll be the A-10 title contenders, along with Richmond. And they return their top 8 scorers from a team that really surged at the end of last season. Now Florida is another team I'm kind of lower on, just because they've really been one of the most disappointing teams the last few years. Again, starting the season out 6th last year, but finishing unranked. I did end up losing Andrew Nembhard, also lost Kerry Blackshear. They returned Scotty Lewis, Keontae Johnson from their team last year, Trey Mann potentially. So they really got a lot of talent. They've got a high ceiling, but I got them coming as a 9. UCLA is a 5 seed, another good Pac-12 team, Pac-12 contender. Again, a team that really got hot like St. Louis at the end of the last season. Waiting on Christmas for the draft decision. If he ends up going, might move them down a spot. But I got them as a 5 seed right now. North Texas, out of the CUSA, over Western Kentucky. You got Javion Hamlet, who just won Player of the Year. Got him back. Plus, they bring in some talent into the team as well. Texas Tech, they lose Jamias Ramsey, DeVito Moretti, 2. They got a top 15 recruiting class coming in. Amari Burnett. To return players like guys like Terrence Shannon. And they could get number one recruit from 2021 who just reclassified. If they end up getting him, they could start preseason top 10. Now Vermont, they lose Anthony Lamb, but they've got a very old team. 5 of the top 7 scorers back. An interesting fact, they've won 10 regular season titles since the turn of the century. So I think they're a pretty reliable pick coming from their conference. Now Louisville, coming in as a 6. I lose a whole lot, and they're a team that really loses a whole lot. They still got a few decent pieces left, like David Johnson, Samuel Williamson, Malik Williams, plus a top 30 recruiting class, plus 2 transfers in Carly Jones. He's coming from Bradford, Charles Midland from San Francisco. So I don't think they're going to win the ACC, but got them in the next tier. Colorado coming in as 11, another Pac-12 team. They did finish the season pretty cold last year. I think in the last game of the season they lost to Washington State in the Pac-12 tournament. But if McKinley Light returns, I think they'll still have enough to get into the tournament. Plus, they got a grad transfer from Tulsa, Jerry Horn. Now, Tennessee got them as a 3 seed. Remember last year they beat Kentucky in a famous game on the road. They've got a top 5 class coming in. Now, Eves Pons, if he comes back, I think this team is probably a top 15 team to start out the season. I think it's a 3 seed and could win the SEC title. Ball State, Justin Turner, who's looking to transfer, actually comes back. They got 4 or 5 scores, so I think they're the team that will come out of the back. Indiana, top 15 recruiting class again. They got the 5-star Christian Lander, also classified to 2020. Some of the top 9 scores, but they did lose one of their guys to the transfer portal to Arkansas. USC coming in as a 10. They got 5-star Evan Mobley, who's a top 3 recruit. I think they'll give him just enough to get in. I did lose a lot from last year. I think Evan Mobley's going to get them into the tournament. Kansas as a 2. They return Marcus Garrett, Ochai Baji, David McCormack, Christian Brown. Good returning pieces for them from the favorite that was to win the 2020 tournament. Plus 5-star Bryce Thompson comes in. Plus they got a JUCO recruit that could win the Big 12 yet again. Now got Southern coming out of the SWAC. Finished the season on an 8-game win streak. Return a lot of their scores from last year with our guys. So I got them coming out of the SWAC. Now we move on to the Midwest. I got Virginia as the number 1 seed there. They return their 5 out of 10 top 7 scorers: Keyhead Clark, Thomas Willington-Sy, Jay Huff, Casey Marcel, plus a top 20 recruiting class headlined by 4-star Jabri Abdur-Rahim and Reese Blackman as well. I think they'll be the ACC, one of the ACC favorites with Duke. And I think they'll eventually go on top of the ACC, win the ACC yet again under 20 to win it. Winthrop as a 16 out of the Big South. They return 4 of the top 5 scorers from their team last year. I think they're coach champs and tournament champs from last year. So I think they'll come out of the Big South. Now UConn, got them as an 8. I think Dan Hurley gets them into the tournament for the first time. Of course, James Bouknight is there. And he's a really good player as well. Cook, who was injured, but he could come back by Big's play. I saw that. I think that's just enough to get them into the tournament for the first time under Dan Hurley. Oklahoma, I did lose Christian Doolittle, who was a senior last year. They got Austin Reeves, Brady Manick. I think Oklahoma will probably settle into where they've been only for the last few years. 9, 10, 8 seed, something like that. Now Stanford, another Pac-12 contender, because they could return their top 6 scorers from the bubble team. Now I don't think they would have gotten in last year because they ended the season on a loss to Cal, but nonetheless they do return. They could return a lot of their guys. Tyrell Terry being an early draft entrant. But if he comes back, they have a really high ceiling. Plus, Zaire Williams comes in. He's a top 10 recruit. And they have a top 10 overall recruiting class, too. Now we go back to the last 4 in. And the number 2 right here. Got Ole Miss and Loyola Chicago. Ole Miss, I think they do a rebound after their season last year. They got Brian Tyree, Blake Henson come back. They were some of the team leaders on their minutes. Return. I'm sorry that they do lose them, but they got Devontae Shuler back and some experienced pieces. And then they also get Romello White, who is an Arizona State grad transfer. So I think Kermit Davis is going to have Ole Miss back in the tournament out of the SEC. Now Loyola Chicago could be a surprise, but I think Loyola Chicago, Sister Jean, will get back into the tournament. And they got top 6 scorers returning, including Cameron Krutwig from the Final 14 a few years ago. So yeah, I got 2 bids from the Missouri Valley. I think that's a real possibility that happens. And then we got West Virginia as a 4, another good Big 12 team for for West Virginia. A return almost everybody. Derek Kohler, Oscar Shebler from the top 25 team last year, so I think they're going to be good again. Now, you got Arkansas Little Rock coming in as a 13 seed out of the the Sun Belt Conference. And it's the first time I think they're going to get in. First time they'll get in since Chris Beard was there back in, I want to say 2016 or maybe 2015. Now, Richmond, I think they'll be co-favorites in the A-10 with St. Louis and perhaps Dayton. They returned top 5 scorers, including Blake Francis, who came back from the NBA draft. And then I noticed that all the top 5 scorers were seniors. So I think they get back to the NCAA tournament with Chris Moody. First time since, 2012, 2011, something like that. Alabama, they lost Kyra Lewis, but they returned Herb Jones, potentially John Petty too, Jordan Warner potentially. I think they've got enough talent to get him out of the SEC. And Nate Oates' second year, I think they're going to get into the tournament. Michigan State coming in, perennial favorite in the Big Ten. Got them as a 3 to lose Cassius Winston. And maybe Xavier Tillman, he's in the NBA draft. Now they got Joey Hauser, remember him from Marquette? So he's going to be eligible. Plus, the role players from last year will now be on the spotlight. Aaron Henry, Rocket Watts, Gabe Brown, plus a few 4-star recruits coming in. Now, New Mexico State, I feel like they've won the WAC like 30 times. I don't know. But they return 3 of the top 6 scorers, including leading rebounder Johnny McCants. Now, I've got Seton Hall coming in as a 7. I don't think they fall off too far after losing Miles Powell. They've got Sandro Montekelishvili coming back, plus Jerry Roden, Miles Cal coming in, Bryce Aiken from Harvard, and Takal Molson. Both of those are transfers that are going to be eligible. So I think they don't fall too far from last year. I got San Diego State as a 10. They did lose Malachi Flynn to the NBA and Yanni Wetzel. So these probably their 2 most important players from last year's team. Waiting on Matt Mitchell to see what he's going to do regarding the NBA. They do return Jordan Shackle and Nathan Mensah, who is also injured. Plus they got Terrell Gomez as a transfer. I do think they'll fall off quite a bit. I got them as a 10 coming out of the Mountain West. I got Iowa as a 2 seed. They've turned almost everybody. And then also Jordan Bohannon, who was injured last season. I think Luka Garza, who came in second in this year's Player of the Year discussion, lost that to Obi Toppin, of course. And they'll be one of the favorites in the Big Ten this year. And I've got them as a top 10 kind of a team. And then Delaware is a 15 seed. They're coming out of the Colonial. They did lose their leading rebounder in Justin Wentz to the transfer portal. But they returned their other 5 leading scorers. And that rounds out the bracket. Now, I do want to briefly talk about some teams I think they're worthy of talking about. They could make the NCAA tournament, but you only can put 68 teams in the field. Starting out, Purdue, I just a quick note, teams in this color I would call kind of my last 4 in. And then my other teams that could make the NCAA tournament, I got them kind of behind Purdue, Dayton, BYU, Providence. Now, Purdue, I think they'll kind of be similar to last season. They really gotta improve their road performance. They've got Trevion Williams, Stefanovic coming back in. So I think they'll still be in contention to get a bid. Dayton, obviously they lose Obi Toppin. They still got 3 key guys from last year's team. Jalen Crutcher, A.B. Watson, Rodney Chapton. They've got a lot of experience. But I've got them just out of the field for now. BYU, another team that loses a whole lot, but they got a lot of experienced pieces, experienced role guys coming in, plus a couple of transfers, including Purdue transfer Matt Harms, and then Providence from the Big East. They got more transfers coming in, but they did lose a lot. Kind of like BYU, they got experienced returning pieces. I got Belmont from the Ohio Valley. Could be close to making the tournament. They would have been in the tournament this year. I've got the 2 leading scorers and leading rebounder back. Miami, Chris Likes, Isaiah Wong back. Sort of rebound after a 2-year absence from the tournament. At Georgia Tech, it's a team that, at least surprisingly, finished 5th in the ACC, even though they had nothing to play for. So they return a lot of guys on that team. So I think they'll be in tournament contention next year. Washington State might seem a little bit crazy, but I think Kyle Smith plus CJ Ellaby, Isaac Ponton, plus 4 of the top 5 scorers, I think they could at least surprise some people next year. South Carolina, out of the SEC, they lose their leading rebounder to transfer. I think he transferred to Butler. But they return A.J. Lawson, plus 7th Woods. And it seems like this team is always kind of close to the tournament. Kind of publish for the NIT. But I think they could surprise some people next year. Western Kentucky, out of the CUSA, has got a lot of talent. I got them behind North Texas right now. I do return lots of talent. Charles Massey, 5-star. Memphis, out of the American. They got some pieces back from the famous class of last year. With another year of experience, but I don't think that I don't think they're gonna get in. Right now, UNC Greensboro out of the SoCon. Potential there, but I got them behind Furman. I got Isaiah Miller, who is a potential NBA draft person who could come back. Xavier, who's their leading scorer and rebounder from a largely disappointing team last year. So I think they land here for now. Pepperdine, that's another kind of a wild pick. but they've slowly been improving the last few years. So I think they, again, could surprise some teams, return a lot, lost a lot of close games, and they almost beat Gonzaga at Gonzaga last year. Texas A&M, another potential surprising team. I think Buzz Williams' second year. Plus, they get a grad transfer in. That could be close to tournament contention. Clemson from the ACC. Brad Brownell on the hot seat. Plus, they got Amir Sims last year. And I think they beat. Man, they had a pretty magical season at home. Of course, famously beating Duke, Florida State, and Louisville. And don't remember if they beat Virginia. But I know they did beat those other teams. So it could be close. Butler, at least three of the top four scorers, including Kamar Baldwin. But some experienced pieces back. Plus, they got that South Carolina transfer I mentioned before, Jair Bolden. Duquesne out of the A-10. They return a whole lot from a competitive A-10 team. Boise State, a lot of transfers coming in. So they got potential to be good out of the Mountain West. I'm not completely sold, but I think they could be in tournament contention. St. Bonaventure, kind of like Duquesne. They're competitive somewhat. They return out a whole lot. So I think they're going to be close too. I think Washington kind of rebounds from last year, finishing last on the Pac-12. They lose their 2 5-stars from last year to the NBA. They still got some talent there. Quade Green, Naz Carter, Marcus Dawkins. So I think they could be close as well. Cincinnati and South Florida, both from the American, rounding out this list. Cincinnati, some okay pieces left. Plus a transfer. And this team's on a 7 or 8 tournament streak. So I think they're always going to be close to the tournament. And in South Florida, another could be a crazy pick, but Alexis Yetna comes back from injury. I think he really lifts this team into tournament contention. Plus, they return a whole lot of other pieces as well. Alright, thank you for watching this video.